Mark Scott, welcome. As I live and breathe, look at that face. You're looking very relaxed and very intelligent. I think that might be something to do with where you are. But before we jump into that, shall we tell people about what we're going to talk about this week?
Yes, brain food for your dog.
And how is that relevant, do we think?
Well, I think with the new range just about we were going to put out there, I was at a meeting this week, and the topic this week was all about the food and nutrition to help your brain. And I realized...
So if we were to say how this is relevant to dogs, I guess that's going to help elder dogs or elderly dogs and prevent cognitive decline. And it's also, I'm guessing, going to help new dogs learn new tricks.
Absolutely. And old.
And old dogs learn new tricks. Awesome. So shall we, Mark, tell us, it looks like you've been kidnapped by the Kibble clan. Do you need me to come rescue you? Can you tell me which way the sun comes up? Have you got any details?
I know the sun goes down for about 3 hours of the day, as my Airbnb has no curtains.
Oh my goodness. But like my Murphys, I'm not bitter.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So tell me, where are you? Where do we find you this week?
I'm on the Baltic coast, and I'm in Tallinn, which is the capital of Estonia, one of the Baltic states.
Nice. Nice. And it's meant to be stunning, isn't it?
It is. It's like a fairy tale. It really is. You go through and it's just magical, magical. And I'm here spending a week at the Mine Valley University, learning off all these great mines and things going on, all the latest research. It's brilliant.
Do you know, I mean, I wish you well, and I think these things are awesome, but it would be unjust of me to not acknowledge that there's a slight twinge of envy that I'm not there with you all, because wow, the people who are there and the people who set it up are all kind of heroes of mine. I think they're fabulous. I love what they do. So in terms of mind stuff, we've talked about it being how it's relevant to dogs. What kind of tips have you taken, and who have you taken them from?
Well, there's a guy called Jim Kwik. He's a memory master. He trains loads of famous people. I won't go, but last week was with Will Smith. The week before he's with Elon Musk. He's that kind of level.
Nice.
And he's been helping you with memory and also things like speed reading. So speed reading, for example, I'm really not that great at. And just a little side note.
So what is speed reading?
So speed reading is basically be able to get through. You should be able to get through a book a day. You know, that's the sort of speed reading we're talking about here.
Oh, that is so cool.
And I don't know about you, but if I read, I tend to get really tired. And that's because I was from school. I was never taught how to internally read. I was taught how to speak out loud and read, which I was never very good at. But when you said to do it internally, no one actually said, you don't need to read at this speed. So that was the one thing that I really got picked up on from Jim Kwik, is how to speed read.
So I'm intrigued on this. I appreciate nobody's going to be teaching their dog to speed read, but look, if you're super busy and you don't have time to listen to a podcast, stop listening now. If you're an interested person and you're interested in this, or you're an interesting person and you're interested in this, Mark, quickly, speed read, because I am absolutely agog. Share with me.
All right. So there's a couple of tips. One is grouping the words together, like maybe grouping 3 words together, and just look at those words and your brain will automatically recognize them. Don't try and read them out. So that's also your brain, your eyes, the way it works is they follow things. So if you were to not touch the paper, but roll your finger across at a speed like that, your eyes will keep up with it and you will absorb the words in. So just try that and just see how you get on.
Awesome. So just to recap, follow your finger, because your eyes follow your finger, and bunch it into words of 3 or maybe more.
You can ignore the filler words. There's loads of filler words. In, out, but, yes, and. Just ignore them. Just ignore them. Just get on with it. Just
zone them out.
Yeah, and you'll find that you'll speed up. So here's my little trick.
And you're not meant to read them out?
No.
In your head?
In your head, no. You got this story. Well, you know you got this little voice, and it should be your voice.
As opposed to the man behind the television telling you to do bad things.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really important.
Well, that was an interesting sidebar. So what have you learned from Jim Kwik?
So he was talking about from a human point of view, the top 10 nutritional foods that you should eat to help your brain. And I actually went, aha, you know, when you have one of those aha moments.
Yeah.
So I'll reel these out. I can actually do it from the 10, the way you taught me to remember it, but I've written it down just to cheat for speed. So number 1's avocado. Number 2's blueberries. Number 3 is broccoli. Number 4 is coconut oil. Number 5 is egg. Number 6, salmon. Number 7 is leafy greens. Number 8 is turmeric. Number 9 is walnuts. And number 10 is dark chocolate.
Interesting. Oh, this is interesting. I see a theme in this.
I bet you do. So obviously there's some here that you would never feed your dog. Dark chocolate, obviously bad. Never give your dog chocolate. And there's a few other ones. Avocado, it's a bit on the borderline, especially the skin and the pip, definitely. But the rest of that, when I looked at it, I went, you know what?
That sounds like something we're in the middle of doing.
Correct. We're just about to bring out a new range, which has actually arrived today and will be available when our IT man updates the website. But that's our new Enriched range. And it suddenly my aha moment was, Rowan, I think we have a meal that's perfect for helping dogs train and absorb.
Well, this is super interesting on several different levels. I am agog. I'm really excited about this. I'm excited about the new food coming out because we've talked about it a lot, and there's been a lot of love gone into that, a lot of love and attention.
So there's two aspects, really, isn't there? You got, and I know because we've spoken about this in the past on different podcasts. You got the nutrition, but also what happens to the brain when you eat something that really isn't good for you.
Well, I think there's 3 parts to this, Mark.
Okay.
And I think, so if we look at it, we've got foods which actually facilitate healthy brain function. Okay, that's all of them. If we look at it generically, like those top 10 foods, all right, a couple of them aren't applicable to dogs, the avocado and the dark chocolate, bookmarking it. The rest we've kind of got in there. So there's 3 elements. There's 1, down-regulating inflammation. There's 2, avoiding toxins, which if you're only feeding this food, then you are doing. And there's 3, providing the building blocks for positive neural growth, also known as neurogenesis. So the toxin thing is almost an aside. If we imagine kibble jail where you are, lots of dogs that get caught in kibble jail, the problem is not only do their brains get inflamed by it, but they can't function because they're impeded by toxins, which stop parts of the brain speaking to each other properly.
Okay, interesting.
Well, if you think of like heavy metals, super toxic, if you were to get a load of rugby players and ask them to work together and you fill them full of toxins, are they going to work better together or worse?
Worse.
So it's exactly the same with brain cells. Basically, they can't work as a team or communicate if they're awash with toxins.
Right, okay.
So
it's like a barrier between them.
Well, it just impedes normal communication. And quite often the body has a priority scale. So if it's got toxins, it knows that it needs to get those out before it can do anything else.
Okay, so it's almost saying I'm not going to communicate until I get rid of these toxins. And if you never get rid of these toxins because you're feeding the same stuff.
Yeah, kind of. There's part of that, and there's part which just blocks the signaling transmission. Okay. And then the other part is if you're eating foods which are, even if they're not toxic, they're inflammatory, then obviously, if you try to pick something up with a swollen hand, it's not going to work as well as if the hand's not swollen. Now, the brain isn't a muscle per se, but anything with swelling doesn't work. Well, we can think of an obvious exception, but let's not go there. So maybe cut that out. So basically, by down-regulating inflammation, such as like turmeric, because it's got the curcumin extract in, that's going to allow the brain to speak to each other. And the other thing I noticed, go on, sorry, Mark, you were going to say, and I'm just
And
rambling on.
No, that's fine. I was going to say we actually add a bit of pepper in there as well, don't we? Because that 3 times or 4 times absorbs the turmeric even better. Am I right?
Well, that's been the problem with turmeric, is that it's not that bioavailable. It's a bit like, shall we say, the flaxseed omega-3 chat that we keep having. You know, you can have a lot of flaxseed, but you can get very little omega-3 from it, or very little usable omega-3. You can eat as much turmeric as you like, but it's not that bioavailable. And black pepper helps you get the essential extract, curcumin, out of that.
That's brilliant. So things like the...
I can see you really meant that.
Yeah, I'm just reading when you're doing it. So we don't have egg, but that's because we've decided not to. But how easy is it to add egg in? And do you add the whole egg in, or would you just add the yolk?
Right. For me, I've got a theory going on that the egg white serves 2 purposes. And that is, 1, to nourish the yolk, but 2, to keep all the bacteria out.
There's actually a third one.
Ooh, go on.
Meringues. Or is it Geordie joke? Am I right or am I wrong?
Mate, I love it. The timing was just awesome. I love it. Yeah. Okay. So I personally, and I know a few people have talked about this in the functional medicine world, that, you know, like for instance, Rocky used to add in raw eggs into his shake.
Yeah.
That doing that, if it's got the egg white, stops you absorbing properly the egg yolk, which is where all the nutrition is.
Okay.
There's an inflammatory protein in egg white. So, for instance, and it's perfect timing again, I've put into Kismet's food today a couple of raw egg yolks.
And would you put the shell in or not?
I put a little bit of shell in. Why? Because egg yolk is super high in choline, which is really important for brain development.
Okay, so brain development. So if in a young dog, totally get that. Would that still be relevant for an older dog?
Totally. I mean, we have to be careful because egg yolk, with it being runny and another animal protein that's ultimately uncooked, it can be quite allergenic. So if your dog's got any food intolerances, and look, this is purely speculation based on what I've seen with humans, is, for instance, just to backpedal ever so slightly, Mark, I've tested X amount, or rather our clinic has had X amount of people tested over the last 3 years. I think I've seen 3 people who are not in some way intolerant to egg.
Who are not? Wow.
Yeah.
So it's just the level that we're at. Depends whether it shows its face or not.
Exactly. So eggs are very healthy, but only if you tolerate them or you've not generated a food intolerance. Same thing, dogs. They're a great source of choline, but if your dog's got like itchy skin or it's gnawing at itself a lot or any of these things, I'd maybe look for other sources than, for instance, just a raw egg yolk.
Okay, and on that, well, I don't know whether we jump to that, but also if they have leaky gut, you've got to heal that first before you do anything.
Totally. You can't have you can't really have an intolerance without having leaky gut.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we've covered off the nutritional part, we've covered off. So how would this then help training a dog?
This is really cool, actually. And I've just been working with an actor who wants to learn his lines quicker and at the same time improve his body composition. By body composition, we mean build muscle and get rid of body fat. So what we're looking at is a couple of things. 1, avoid toxins. 2, downregulate inflammation. 3, provide all the building blocks. Is this sounding familiar?
Very, very, very.
I've put him on the Bella+Duke Enriched range. He's called Fido. It's Dido's brother. So basically, where are we going on that?
So training dogs.
if you're giving all the underlying building blocks for neurogenesis, which is basically creating new brain cells and growing new connections between those brain cells, two slightly different things, okay? If you've got all the building blocks in place and there's no inflammation and no toxins, then you're going to learn a lot quicker than if they were. To take a really base thing, imagine trying to teach somebody a new language on a stag do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, they're full of toxins.
Well, you just got to learn. Thank you very much. And what do I get for $5 again?
Yeah. You know, so can I have the kebab and the chips to take away and the can of pop? You know, if you're teaching somebody a new language, they're on a stag do, they're full of toxins, they're totally inflamed, and they don't have the building blocks. All right. You get that person 3 weeks later when they're fully recovered and they're chilled out and you've given them some really good nutrition and they've not had a shower and loads of sleep. You're looking at two different humans. For instance, and we have to be careful because obviously you're currently in kibble clink or kibble prison, whichever we want to call it. It actually looks the colour like it's made out of kibble.
Not on the other side when it comes out.
We have to be careful about not ramping up the ransom. So I guess the point is, if you're giving all the underlying building blocks for your dog for it to make these new synaptic connections, how bits of the brain communicate with each other, then it's a lot easier for that dog to actually remember things, pick up on things, be more emotionally sensitive. You know how dogs are watching you and picking up on behaviors? If their brain's less inflamed and they're able to pick up on these things, well, it means for better behavior with the dog.
And I just don't, absolutely. So it makes total sense. I mean, at the end of the day, if you were to feed kids crisps every single day, they would not learn as well at school. They wouldn't get the nutritional. Yet we do this with our dogs.
Well, crisps, it's inflammatory fats which have been ultra heat treated, just like kibble, damages DNA. So if you think also sugar, now we've not seen the sugar, and I believe Caroline's about to release a really cool blog article on this about dogs and learning and the rest. So this is perfect timing. But if you've seen those, and I think I posted it a while ago, those mind or brain maps, those heat maps of what's working when kids are given sugar, it's exactly the same senses and area which is activated as if you give an adult cocaine.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
So what you're
doing is you're pre-programming kids to respond very well to stimuli which don't serve them. Now, are kids going to be learning after you've filled them full of, whatever, pick and mix and put them in a ball pool?
And how addictive is it?
Well, it's probably one of the most addictive. It's got to be one of the top 5 most addictive things on the planet, including narcotics.
So when we talk about cats, because we're bringing the cat range out soon, one of the things that Wendy, our wonderful vet, said that they get so addicted to the salts and the sugars that they put in some of these canned food brands that it's impossible to get them off because they are absolutely wired and addicted for that rush.
Well, this is really interesting because whilst this is only speculation, a few years ago, there was a lot of chat about certain brands adding secretly and not putting it on the ingredient list, but putting a lot of salt to make it addictive to cats into the food. Now, they weren't putting this on the ingredient list, but then cats were getting a lot of kidney failure. Now, interestingly, and I think this ties in with something we were discussing before, is that since they've been caught out on that, what they've done is they've simply changed that and they're spraying a lot of kibbles for both cats and dogs with a mixture of fats and sugar. Now, this is almost a bit like a fast food chain, very famous, making addictive burgers, right? People crave it. Why? Because they get this rush from it, because it's satisfying an addictive urge. Now, with cats, that explains why cat diabetes in the last 5 years in the UK has gone up nearly 1,200%.
That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
So let's say nearly 12 times, it's actually at 1,148%, so it's closer to 11 to 12 times incidences of cat diabetes in the UK.
So this comes to my quest, as always, with Bella+Duke, and I know you're on the same train, is how do we get this message out to people before it's too late? Because most people come to us once they've tried everything. They're itchy skin, they've tried it, or their dog's got cancer like me. And you know, I could sit here and have all the guilt under the sun, but you don't know what you don't know. So let's get past that. Oh, I fed dogs kibble, right? All this processed food, in our opinion, is the major cause for all these illnesses. Let's just, like you said in the past, Rowan, let's just draw the line in the sand. Let's go. This is where we stand, right? We are massive believers in this. Okay. What else explains the high issues with all these dogs? Question is, how do we get the message out there to people before it's too late? Because quite often, you don't see a problem with a dog until it is too late.
Well, this is it. And this is why I totally agree with you. And frankly, it makes me super fucking angry. I mean, like, it's just beyond off the charts angering that people can do this for a commercial purpose and then try and quash information or discredit information they were putting out, saying, hey, well, you don't have any studies. We don't need it.
Well,
Frankly, we don't need it. Why? Well, cats and dogs evolved and lived very happily and very healthily until you intervened, i.e. with kibble. Their health is going down, so clearly something is not working. They are recovering on this kind of diet. End of. Yeah, we'll get studies as and when they come out, but I'm certainly not going to wait for 10 years endangering Kismet's health just to corroborate exactly what we already know intuitively is correct, and we're seeing clinical evidence thereof.
So the question,
Angry Rowan has left the room.
How many companies do you know, or brands or products that you know are brilliant, but just aren't out there on the masses because the poor products get all the marketing, the great products don't?
Well, there's a combination of that. There's one, because we're not ridiculously priced, we're not as commercially lucrative as some of these bigger brands who are prepared to cut corners on ingredients.
And I get this, right? So people do say to us, oh, we're expensive. Expensive compared to what? Is my question.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, I mean, we have to be careful of not sounding like we're talking our own game here. This is absolutely a podcast, not us in the pub having a podcast.
No, but I mean, when you're competing against kibble, it's costing you 22 pence a day. Of course, we're expensive compared to that.
Well, yeah, and if you want to feed your kids dust, you can do that a lot cheaper than actually giving them broccoli.
So, but that's my point is with the reason we do these podcasts and the reason we put this free information out there is because we want to educate. And, you know, it's suddenly dawned on me about the whole reasons that some dogs struggle to learn. Well, first, just look at what you're feeding them. Just look at that. And you go realize the brain food for humans, okay, slightly different species, but how we work is pretty darn similar.
Oh, I mean, yes. And let's look at it. It's not just about learning. It's about preventing brain decline as we get older. Same story humans, same story dogs. And actually, this leads perfectly into a few questions this week. By the way, guys, one polite request is if you have questions, please put them on the Facebook group. If you've not already joined the Facebook group, please do it. But please put them on the Facebook group, because if they've not already been asked before, then it helps us all learn together. And then everybody learns at the same time.
Sorry, just to jump in, and if they have been asked before, it's not a problem I'll answer them again, because there's always new people and there's always people within the group who have the answers.
It's never a problem, but the point being, we all get to evolve, and we evolve quicker if we see all of the questions. So put them on the group, join the group, put them on the group, help be a force for change. And if you've got a question, so many people are experiencing the same thing, we actually learn a lot quicker.
Beautiful.
Like Jim Kwik.
Like Jim Kwik, well, Kwik. I like what you did there.
You see, I've been listening.
Oh, the other thing just reminded me, the oils, the herbs and all that stuff, got the labels done. They are on their way. They're going to be very, very soon, so you'll be able to get them through your portal. Like the treats, we don't just sell treats, we don't just sell oils and herbs. If you want them, you have to be a Bella+Duke pack member. So we'll put them in your deliveries. And Enriched is going to be happening in the next week. I'm just waiting.
I am triple excited about that.
Me too.
And I guess the next thing is just a little update for you. Is I'm speaking with some people to have our own digestive enzymes and probiotics.
That's brilliant. So I know you've been working to a secret formula. You've been getting your lab coat out and bubbling things up, and almost there. So that's exciting.
I think Professor Mika in the Muppets. Was it?
Not
Was
Gonzo.
Mika his assistant?
Right.
Potato.
Animal. I'm animal. Whatever.
Yeah.
You are.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right, Rowan. That's brilliant. Well, thanks again for sharing your expertise, your knowledge, and your big words.
Oh, Mark Scott, you superhero. Always a pleasure, mate. Absolutely, always a pleasure. It's been nice to do one of these. It's been a while.
It has. Well, it has. We'll have to keep doing it.
What are we going to do next week?
I'll see who's on this week and then get some more inspiration.
Right, Roger Dodger. So just to recap for everybody who's been listening, brain food, help your dog learn new tricks, help old dogs learn new tricks, help prevent old dogs get too old. And one point I didn't make on this, which is super important, Mark, is brain health is reflective of total health. The brain does not exist, as we know, separate and distinct to the rest of the body. It's
100%.
fed with the same food that feeds the rest of the body. So if you're eating healthy food, it's healthy for your brain generally.
Absolutely. So your body's showing inflammation. Guess what's happening in your brain?
Absolutely. And nobody wants to be inflamed in the membrane, to quote my friend, the prodigy. You twisted fire starter.
Hi, gorgeous.
All right. See you again.
Take care. Bye.